Welcome back to today's program. Today is December 15, 2025. Perhaps for many people, this is just a normal Monday. Everyone is rushing to work, drinking a quick cup of coffee and scrolling through news lines on their phones. But for those who love technology, or simply those who once marveled when they first saw a round disc automatically running around the house to vacuum dust, today is a day full of sad emotions and regret. The story I want to tell you today is about the collapse of a monument. That is iRobot, the father of the famous Roomba robot vacuum line. You know, early this morning, Vietnam time, iRobot officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the US. After 35 years of formation and development, after selling tens of millions of robots to help liberate labor for housewives globally, this giant finally had to bow its head before huge debts and fierce competition. So what really happened? Why did a company once valued at billions of dollars, once a symbol of the smart home, fall into this tragic situation? Let's go back in time with me a bit and peel back each layer of this story. Imagine the world of 20 years ago. Back then, the concept of a robot doing housework sounded more like a science fiction movie than reality. But then, iRobot appeared. They didn't just create a product, they created an entirely new category of goods. Before Roomba, we had to hold the vacuum cleaner and walk around the house ourselves. When Roomba was born, it was like magic. You just needed to press a button and that round disc would go find dirt itself. In those days, owning a Roomba in the house was a point of pride. It proved the owner was modern, stylish, and loved technology. iRobot had a brilliant golden age. They dominated the market. They were kings of the realm. But there is an immutable rule in business as well as in life that when you stand on the peak, that is also when you are most vulnerable to attack, and also when you are most prone to sleeping on your victory. The tragedy of iRobot did not happen overnight, but it was the result of a chain of unfortunate events and prolonged wrong decisions. The story started to become dramatic about 3 years ago when Amazon, the e-commerce giant, offered to buy iRobot for $1.4 billion. At that time, this was seen as the most wonderful lifebuoy. Amazon had money, had the Alexa smart home ecosystem, and they needed iRobot's robots to complete the user's home map. And iRobot needed Amazon's abundant capital to fight against rising competitors. It seemed like a perfect marriage. The iRobot leadership bet everything on this deal. They believed that when moving into the same house with Amazon, all financial problems would be solved. But life is not a dream. Antitrust regulators in Europe and the US blocked this deal. They worried Amazon would become too powerful and would strangle other competitors. And so, in early 2024, the deal officially collapsed. Amazon pulled out, leaving iRobot stranded in the middle of the rushing current. This was the first fatal punch. When the deal failed, iRobot not only lost the money source, but they also lost direction. They had spent too much time and mind preparing to sell themselves, forgetting the most important task of making themselves stronger. Their stock price plummeted, they had to lay off employees, and most importantly, they were left behind in the technology race. While iRobot was lost in the merger dream, on the other hemisphere of the globe, competitors from China like Roborock, Echovax, or Dream rose up strongly like a storm.
I want to take a specific example so you can easily imagine. About 3 or 4 years ago, if you wanted to buy the best robot vacuum, you chose Roomba. But then Chinese companies started launching features that users truly craved, but iRobot was slow to deploy. Those were all-in-one docking stations that could self-wash mops, self-dry, and self-refill water. That was the ability to mop floors extremely clean, not just drag a damp cloth like the old Roomba generations. That was the extremely smart AI camera system to avoid obstacles, not getting stuck in electric wires or children's toys. Competitors made products that were better, more beautiful, and importantly, the prices were extremely competitive. iRobot was like an old king, still proud of his heroic past, while young knights outside were equipped with modern guns to storm the citadel. Consumers are very practical. They don't buy goods out of pity or nostalgia for the past. They buy because that product solves their problem best, and iRobot was no longer the best choice. To this day, December 15, 2025, iRobot filed for bankruptcy. But I need to explain a bit clearly about the concept of Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the US so you don't get too panicked. This is not immediate death. It is like a seriously ill patient having to be admitted to the emergency room for surgery. When filing under Chapter 11, the company will be protected by the court from creditors for a period of time. During this time, they still operate normally, still sell goods, still support customers. The purpose is for them to have time to restructure the machine, negotiate debt reduction, or find a new buyer. According to information I read from Reuters and Bloomberg, ownership of iRobot will now transfer to the hands of creditors. To put it simply, the people who lent iRobot money will now become the new bosses of the company. They will write off some debt in exchange for shares. This is a painful but necessary step to save this brand. A problem that I know many of you are worried about, and the Wall Street Journal has also mentioned very carefully, is the fear of robots turning into bricks. Imagine you spend $1,000 to buy a smart robot, but that intelligence depends on the company's server, on the internet connection. If the company goes bankrupt and closes the server, then that robot will be no different from an expensive paperweight. It won't be able to draw maps, cannot be controlled via phone, or even run on schedule. However, in the latest announcement, iRobot tried to reassure users. They committed that services will not be interrupted. Servers are still running, applications are still working. They're trying to soothe this fear, because they understand that if users lose faith now, then iRobot truly ends. Their biggest asset right now is not factories or patents, but the trust of millions of customers using their products. The story of iRobot brings me many emotions and reflections. It reminds me of the story of Nokia or Kodak in the past, giants who once thought they were unbeatable but eventually collapsed because they refused to change. I feel sorry for a brand that was once a pioneer, but I also see this as a harsh but fair rule of elimination of the market. No one can live forever on the glory of the past. If you stop innovating, you will die. iRobot was too confident in the Roomba brand. They priced the product too high, while features were inferior to competitors. They relied too much on the US market and forgot that creativity was exploding in Asia.
Now let's switch to the most important part together. That is what we, the people listening to this podcast, can learn from the collapse of iRobot to apply to our own lives and work. I have drawn 3 favorite lessons and want to share them with you right now. The first lesson is never bet your future on a savior. iRobot bet everything on selling themselves to Amazon. They hoped Amazon would come and solve all money and strategy problems for them. When the deal collapsed, they had no plan B, and they collapsed. It is the same in our lives. Never wait for someone, some company, or some luck to come and save your career or finances. You must be the one holding the steering wheel of your life. Always have a backup plan. If your current job is difficult, if the boss who promised to promote you suddenly quits, what will you do? Always stand on your own 2 feet. Don't lean too much on an external factor you cannot control. The second lesson is the danger of the comfort zone. iRobot stayed in the comfort zone for too long. They were the robot vacuum kings for decades, and they thought just doing well what they were doing was enough. But the world changes every second. Competitors do not sleep. In our work, if you feel you are very stable, the work is repetitive and you do it easily, then watch out. That could be a sign you are falling behind. Continuously learn new skills. Look at what younger people are doing, how new technology is changing your profession. Don't wait until you are fired or replaced to be startled and realize you are outdated. Break your own comfort zone before life does it for you in a brutal way.
And the final lesson, the third lesson, is to listen and understand the customer, or more broadly, understand the people around you. iRobot failed because they didn't truly listen to what users wanted. Users wanted robots that mopped cleaner, were more automatic, but iRobot remained conservative with old designs. In relationships, whether with a boss, colleagues, or family members, listening and understanding the other person's needs is the key. Don't just ramble on about what you have or what you achieved in the past. Care about what the person opposite truly needs in the present and future. Your value lies in what problem you solve for others, not in the title you bestow upon yourself. Dear friends, the story of iRobot on December 15, 2025 is a sad, low note, but it is a priceless lesson. I hope that through this story, you not only updated a piece of hot tech news, but also found for yourselves deep reflections to be steadier on the path ahead. Change is the only thing that does not change. Instead of fearing it, prepare a mindset to receive and adapt to it. Thank you for spending time listening to the story today. I truly appreciate your companionship. If you find this sharing useful, or if it triggers any thoughts in you, don't hesitate to share with me. Your interaction is the biggest motivation for me to continue exploring and telling even better stories. And now, look back at yourself a bit to see if you are being an iRobot sleeping on victory or not. I wish you a working day full of energy, and may you always keep the flame of innovation in your heart. Goodbye, and see you in the next episode.